incredible moment a single mom transformed her drunk boss's life. What he discovered the next day. The clock ticked past midnight, and the fluorescent lights hummed in the nearly empty advertising agency. Sarah, a 35-year-old single mother, was buried beneath a mountain of client presentations, her body aching from the weight of exhaustion. Outside, the cozy, tree-lined streets of Springfield glimmered under the pale glow of street lamps, a stark contrast to the chaos brewing in her mind. She feared not just for her jobs at the agency, but for the future of her two spirited children. She clasped her pen tightly, praying for a miracle that would signal a way out of this relentless grind. When her boss, Greg, stumbled through the door, the scent of bourbon trailed behind him like a dark cloud. The memory of his once promising creative spark flickered in Sarah's mind. Now he was a husk of despair, weighed down by regret. Hatred surged through her veins. How could he ruin his life, and, by extension, hers? Yet as he began sharing half-formed thoughts about days gone by, something shifted within her. It was his vulnerability that exposed a deeper truth, one she recognized all too well, the struggle against lost ambitions. Almost involuntarily, she warned him, "You need to get it together, Greg. Your decisions impact my family." Her voice trembled, half threat, half pleading. But in the midst of her frustration, empathy surged. She found herself offering him a lifeline, a second chance at storytelling, the very thing he had abandoned. That unexpected moment sparked a connection. Their late-night brainstorming sessions unfolded slowly, laden with painful truths and laughter. Were they crafting pitches or healing wounds? The line blurred as she learned to see him not just as her boss, but as a partner in creativity, rebuilding the trust between them, brick by painful brick. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the sun began to rise, Greg awoke with the weight of last night's revelations pressing on him. His underwhelming career loomed large, memories of ambition contrasting sharply against the haze of regret still clouding his mind. Would this pitch be his shot at redemption, or would it box him into mediocrity once again? The air felt electric, and Sarah's quiet belief in him rang in his ears. He stood at the crossroads, fear nipping at his heels, questioning whether years of complacency could be broken. Could he regain the confidence that had once fueled his creativity? Painful doubt clawed at him as he prepared for the agency pitch. Every breath was laborious, his muscles tensed, as he contemplated the magnitude of the moment. Could he carry Sarah's hopes, the dreams she desperately held for her children? The clock was ticking, and looming decisions gripped him. Their fates intertwined. He breathed deep, wondering if he could finally reclaim the ambition that had once defined him. As his heart raced and the voices of his complacent past whispered menacingly, dawn unveiled the relentless possibilities. But would he embrace them or fall back into the shadows? As the sun broke through the horizon, casting golden rays through the office windows, Sarah felt a new surge of urgency. It wasn't just about Greg anymore. It was about her. The late-night conversations had awakened something dormant within her. She had always been the caretaker, the one juggling the demands of her children, her job, and relentless responsibilities. But underneath, a spark of creativity long suppressed began to flicker once again. She glanced around the half-empty agency, its blank walls taunting her with the promise of unrealized potential. The energy from her late-night sessions lingered in the air like a lingering perfume. In those moments of vulnerability, Sarah had tapped into her own ambition, one that had once been sidelined by the harsh realities of motherhood and financial deadlines. The realization struck her. She could take charge not just of Greg's rejuvenation, but her own trajectory as well. With a determination that surprised even her, she drafted a new pitch, a bold idea that married their energies into one cohesive story. If Greg could reclaim his voice, she could do so too. but the risks loomed large. What if she failed? What if her aspirations were seen as pretentious in a space where survival trumped creativity? Her heart raced as she reevaluated her life. She was tired of being invisible behind the stacks of client reports, relegated to the mundane while her instincts screamed for a platform. The constant fear of insecurity had held her back for too long. The thought of stepping into the limelight felt intoxicating, yet terrifying. With renewed fervor, Sarah found herself crafting not just a pitch, but a vision that spoke to the broken dreams and uncharted potential in every corner of their agency. She balanced practicality and inspiration, her pen flying across the page as words ignited deep within her. Each stroke was a testament to her struggle, a declaration that she could rise above whatever challenged her. Yet, as the hours rolled into the day, doubt whispered its familiar lies. Was it truly her place to lead? Would the others scoff at her audacity? The weight of her children's future hung on her shoulders, an anchor pulling her back into the safe shadows of compliance. In moments of frustration, she reminded herself that this wasn't just about Greg's redemption. It was about breaking free from a cycle that had limited her for far too long. As she prepared for the presentation, Sarah cycled through the knot of nerves tightening in her stomach. She caught glimpses of herself in the glass-fronted office, a determined woman, torn between fear and unwavering ambition. Just as she stepped onto the floor where the team gathered, she noticed Greg pacing near the presentation board, his face a mix of anticipation and residual doubt. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, their future intertwined. Each had a crossroad to confront, yet the same kernel of dawn shone in their shared resolve, to create something that delivered not just pitches, but honesty, vulnerability, and hope. As Sarah took a breath, ready to conquer the moment, she couldn't shake the thought of Greg's potential lingering in her mind. Would this partnership be enough to lift both their aspirations? Could they truly inspire not just each other, but everyone around them? With genuine determination etched on her face, she opened her mouth, ready to seize the opportunity. As the words began to spill forth, Sarah knew they were about to embark on a journey that could lead to great heights or devastating falls. A confession about her own dreams hung in the air, trembling with unspoken words. And yet deep within her, a whisper urged her to reveal her vision fully, dare to confront the tumult of her fears and the weight of their fates. What awaited them at the brink of revelation? Would their shared vulnerabilities spark a cascade of unforeseen consequences? Sarah's heart raced as she stood before her colleagues, her pitch half-formed but bold in intent. The conference room felt alive, the attendees buzzing with the anticipation that mingled with an undercurrent of skepticism. Greg's gaze, filled with hope yet clouded by his own fears, encouraged her even as doubts clenched around her throat like a noose. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on her chest. She began to speak, the words flowing as she struck the balance between her vision and his. As she laid bare the concepts they had discussed in those sleepless nights, she saw the flickers of recognition in the room, faces shifting from disbelief to curiosity. Each word she uttered summoned the resilience she had once thought lost, pulling from the depths of her experience as a mother, a caretaker, and now a leader. This was not simply a project for her. This was a declaration of self-worth. Yet, the looming specter of failure haunted her every phrase, amplifying the urgency in her voice. "Imagine a campaign that mirrors our personal journeys," she articulated, her eyes darting from one tentative face to another. "Not just a narrative we sell, but a story that resonates, that speaks to our inner struggles and triumphs." A ripple of conversation spread across the room, challenging the dangerously normalized norms of their agency's past. For a moment, clarity washed over her. This was the risky dive into creative waters she had yearned for. It was a fragile hope rooted in her understanding of authenticity. She hadn't just crafted a pitch, but had painted a reflection of herself, raw, honest, complex. But was that enough? Was she prepared for the backlash of stepping away from safety? The gnawing thoughts resurfaced, weaving through her resolve. Greg leaned forward as Sarah paused, Sensing her hesitation, he added, "It's not about perfection. It's about connection. Our audience craves authenticity more than they crave polished facades." His support anchored her, solidifying the very foundation upon which they were attempting to rebuild. He had once been the jester of the office, stumbling through each deadline, yet here he was, channeling latent strength in her moment of vulnerability. Yet the conversation could just as easily turn against them. With her voice steadying, Sarah plunged deeper into the narrative. She exposed that part of herself that craved validation not only to lift Greg, but herself too. This isn't merely Greg's rescue, this is about confronting the narratives we allow ourselves to be shackled by. Each of us in this room holds the power to redefine our stories. A silence loomed after her declaration, thick and heavy. She scanned the faces, searching for any signs of engagement or retreat. Finally, Claire, her colleague known for her sharp criticism, spoke up. "It's risky, Sarah. But isn't that what we need? We've been playing it safe for too long." Encouragement surged forward from the group, igniting newfound energy. This was the moment Sarah had long sought, a flicker of acceptance in the unexpected. As they mapped the new direction, a strange excitement replaced fear, her resolve hardening like steel. Yet even as enthusiasm filled the room, a pang of anxiety settled deep within her. If they ventured down this path, the stakes would only heighten. What if they didn't succeed? What if their raw honesty flopped in the face of corporate indifference? The radical clarity of their shared vision stood at odds with the ever-looming possibility of failure. As discussions deepened and concepts began to solidify, a familiar bitterness hovered in the corners of her mind. Their journey together felt treacherous. Each step could enlighten or collapse under pressure. Sarah realized the journey ahead would test not only their professional mettle, but also the very fabric of their personal commitments. What awaited them as they transitioned from the safety of familiarity to the depths of creative exploration? Sarah took a deep breath, unsure if she could manage it all, yet propelled by an addictive sense of purpose. Would this venture prove the catalyst for her liberation or another cycle of struggle? With the first spark ignited, Sarah understood that every decision from this point forward would determine their fate, pushing them towards untold horizons or pulling them down into shadows. The moment of truth loomed on the horizon, wavering tantalizingly close yet terrifyingly uncertain. As the discussion unfolded around her, Sarah felt the heat of the room crystallizing her resolve, while simultaneously igniting an unnerving cocktail of fear and determination. Ideas bounced around like pinballs, each sparking flashes of insight, including questions nobody dared to voice. What if they embraced vulnerability as strength, not a flaw? What if their audience perceived their authenticity as a weakness instead of a magnetizing force? Just as the momentum began to build, a sharp voice cut through the euphoria. "But what about the metrics?" Jonah, one of the senior strategists, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed defensively. "We can't ignore our KPIs. If we stray too far from what sells, we risk everything. The board won't back this." Sarah instinctively bristled, but she also recognized the challenge. Jonah was practical, yes, but his rigid adherence to traditional markers of success felt antiquated. Still, she could see how deeply rooted his fear of change was. "I appreciate your concern, Jonah," she replied, forcing calm into her tone. "But consider this. If we don't update our approach, won't we become entirely irrelevant? Sometimes it's the risks we take that lead to the biggest rewards." His skeptical gaze remained, but the momentary silence of the group suggested a shift was occurring. Challenging the norm was a daunting task, but with every stir of conviction within her, Sarah could see the flickers of possibility flickering like candle flames. The wheels of contemplation began turning in the minds of her peers. Greg shifted, pacing slightly, drawing attention back to Sarah's outline on the whiteboard. Sarah's right. Metrics matter, absolutely. But we also need to redefine what those metrics look like. We're in a new era where engagement means more than just clicks or sales. It's about connection. Sarah held his gaze, a feeling of unity building, and suddenly she was emboldened. People are hungry for narratives that reflect their lives. They want to engage with brands that feel real, and that doesn't happen by playing it safe. As the dialogue shifted, she felt a sense of liberation sweeping through her. In that moment, she realized her position at the agency had transformed from an uncertain participant to an agent of change. There was strength in the collective uncertainty, a shared acknowledgement that to truly stand out, they must embrace the very flaws they so often sought to conceal. The drive within her surged. It was one thing to propose ideas. It was another to ensure they were brought to life amidst the potential opposition. The thought of a bold campaign excited her, yet the deeper truth beckoned. What personal sacrifices would she need to make to protect this vision? Hours flew by with discussions morphing into tangible strategies. As they began to outline the framework of their new campaign, Sarah felt exhilarated yet burdened. Would her commitment to authenticity clash with others' contrasting philosophies? The specter of resistance loomed large, more menacing now than ever. Just before dismissing the group, her internal alarm rang fainter than before as she darted a glance at Claire, who had surprisingly supported Sarah's push for authenticity earlier. "You know," Claire added, her voice lowered, "I've seen what happens when teams placate the status quo. You can either choose comfort or growth." Confidence surged through Sarah at Claire's remark. This was an implicit acknowledgement of their shared path, but also a reminder that each person was wrestling with their own fears in this transformative phase. As the meeting wrapped up and colleagues began to trickle out, Sarah felt enveloped by a blend of dread and excitement. Could she not only lead them through the campaign, but also navigate her own doubts about leadership? The answer lingered tantalizingly close. Hold on to this moment, Sarah thought, as she stood alone in the conference room, her thoughts swirling. The taste of potential victory also carried the bittersweet scent of risk. She was on a precipice. The winds of change were swift, and at any moment they could shift. What further challenges awaited that would test their collective strength, especially with the looming disapproval of the board? As uncertainty loomed, an unexpected knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Sarah, are you in here?" It was Greg, and the concern etched on his face suggested that the stakes were rising faster than either of them had anticipated. Greg stepped into the room, his eyebrows knitted together, hinting at urgency. "I just got off the phone with Jonah. He's not backing down, Sarah. He's raising the metrics discussion to the board tomorrow, and it doesn't sound like they're open to our ideas." The words hit Sarah like ice water. Panic darted through her bloodstream, but she quickly pushed it aside. This was the precise moment she needed to harness her resolve and pivot her thinking. "What are they saying?" She focused on maintaining a level tone, her heart racing. "He believes our proposal lacks concrete data. He's framing it as reckless. If the board doesn't buy in, this could kill the campaign before it even launches," Greg said, his voice low as if sharing a grave secret. "Isn't this about more than just data?" Sarah countered, her thoughts racing back to the discussions that had lit a fire in the room earlier. "We're trying to redefine how we connect with our audience. We need to show them the potential in this risk." Greg ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "It's not just about metrics, it's Jonah's power play. He's scared of losing his influence over the board, and he's throwing our ideas under the bus to protect himself." Her frustration mirrored his. Why was Jonah so focused on retaining the status quo when there was an ocean of opportunity just beyond the conventional lens? She realized this was more than a campaign. It was about leading with conviction. "We can't let Jonah dictate the narrative," Sarah asserted, her voice hardening. "We have to arm ourselves with data that supports our vision. It's not an appeal just to the board's fears. It's about showing them what's at stake, the power of genuine engagement." Greg nodded slowly. "Right, but we need a detailed research framework. If we don't act fast, we could lose everything we've worked for." As they began to brainstorm urgent strategies, Sarah felt her pulse quicken with every idea. The gritty inevitability of this challenge was a transformative moment, one that forced her to dig deep into her own strength. She realized she had the ability to turn this around, but it required unwavering commitment on her part. Determined, she outlined a plan to gather consumer insights and case studies that demonstrated the effectiveness of authenticity over traditional metrics. "Let's create a two-pronged approach," she suggested. "We'll combine quantitative data with powerful narratives. If they can't just see the numbers but also feel the potential by witnessing real-world examples, it strengthens our case. Greg's eyes widened, a spark igniting in them. That could work. If we frame authentic engagement as the future of our brand, it might resonate with what the board is looking for. The weight of the upcoming meeting loomed heavily over Sarah as she scribbled notes. Every thought felt crucial, every suggestion a thread weaving the future of their campaign together. Yet beneath that excitement, a voice within her whispered doubts. Was she truly ready to spearhead this revolution? Sarah, let's present this together. You're the voice of our team, and I believe in you, Greg said, breaking her concentration. The sincerity in his gaze fortified her resolve. He was staking his trust in her ability to navigate the complexities ahead. Okay, she replied, a new fire igniting inside her. But we need to prepare for pushback. Let's think about how to handle their objections if they arise. Together they dissected potential opposition and rehearsed responses, but uncertainty gnawed at Sarah. What if the board's opposition was more than just resistance to new ideas? What if they dismantled her vision before it even had a chance to flourish? Late into the night, exhaustion threatened to blur her focus. The stakes were climbing, and as her eyelids grew heavy, realizations dawned. This was her chance to redefine not only how her agency approached marketing, but how she defined herself as a leader. Just as she was about to leave the office, her phone buzzed with a message from Claire. Are you still up? I want to chat. Sure, what's up? Can you meet me in the cafe across the street? I think we need to talk strategy, about Jonah's angle, Claire replied. Sarah felt a sudden twist of anxiety. What if Claire had doubts too? Or worse, what if Claire was signaling that their collaboration was facing a fracture? She texted back, I'll be there, I'll be. As she stepped into the parking lot, she felt the weight of the choices ahead. This was her defining moment, her chance to challenge the old guard. But could she hold her ground against Jonah while navigating the complexities of evolving relationships within her team? Clutching her notebook tightly, she took a deep breath and made her way to the cafe. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but it might very well lead to the growth she so desperately craved. What awaited her in that conversation with Claire? Would it be a chance for solidarity or a confrontation of conflicting visions? The cafe buzzed with late-night energy when Sarah entered, the hum of soft chatter and the aroma of coffee enveloping her. She spotted Claire at a corner table, her face seemingly calm, but Sarah sensed an underlying tension. As she approached, Claire motioned for her to sit, and before Sarah could speak, Claire dove in. I spoke to Jonah earlier, Claire began, her tone carefully measured. He thinks we're out of our league with this campaign. I'm worried he's sowing distrust among our colleagues. That's what I feared, Sarah replied, her voice steady but reflective of the inner storm brewing. We're not just fighting for the campaign. We're fighting against a narrative he's spinning. Claire leaned in closer. I know we have a strong vision, but we need a united front. It might be time to address some of Jonah's criticisms head-on. We can't let him divide us. The gravity of the moment hit Sarah. Foreboding thoughts shifted in her mind. Was she strong enough to lead the team, especially when doubt loomed from within her own ranks? But if we confront him directly, won't it escalate the issue? What if he takes it as a direct challenge? Claire nodded, acknowledging the complexity of the situation. It's a risk, but it's necessary. We have to position ourselves as innovators, not as a team that shrinks from conflict. Ultimately, it's about demonstrating our strength, not just our ideas. Sarah felt her conviction rise at Claire's words. This was a pivotal moment, a chance to not just defend their position, but to redefine their team's trajectory. So how do we bring the team together, ensuring we stand firm without fracturing our morale? Claire took a sip of her coffee, gaze unwavering. We craft a response that highlights our research. We'll have to do it collaboratively, presenting a united strategy to the board, showing Jonah there's no room for pettiness in our vision. The lines on Claire's forehead deepened as she outlined the plan. Sarah listened intently, absorbing the sheer gravity of what was being asked of her. Leading a confrontation was a leap she had yet to take, but she could feel a flicker of determination igniting within her. What if we created a visual presentation, Sarah suggested, excitement mingling with anxiety. We could showcase not only the data we collected, but also testimonials from our target audience. It would personalize the statistics, make them resonate with the board. Claire grinned, visibly energized. Exactly. It'll serve as our shield and our sword. If we frame it right, we might even shift Jonah's influence by positioning ourselves as the ones championing innovation and real connection. As they hammered out the details, Sarah felt empowered. Claire's presence reaffirmed her belief in their vision, and for the first time, she saw how they could elevate their campaign amidst the chaos Jonah was causing. Yet with each decision they made, the stakes rose higher. As the clock ticked towards midnight, doubt flickered briefly, but was quickly overshadowed by clarity. The idea of confronting Jonah was appalling, but it also felt exhilarating. Deep inside her, a voice began to echo, urging her to step into the spotlight, to lead with authority and authenticity rather than retreating into the shadows of fear. But as they finalized their plan, a question tightened in her mind. Could Sarah foster this newfound bravery and convince the team they could confront Jonah together, or would the doubt gradually chip away at her growing resolve? Sarah glanced at Claire, driven but unsure. What if we can't change Jonah's mind? What if he convinces the board we're not ready? He won't, Claire replied, steely confidence in her eyes. Not if we present our case with conviction. The determination in Claire's voice was magnetic, but Sarah's heart raced with uncertainty. This was about more than the campaign. This was about her journey into uncharted territory as a leader. Then let's prepare for every possible outcome, Sarah said firmly. We'll need backup stories that bolster our proposal in case he tries to dismantle it. As they broke for a moment, Sarah meticulously noted down their strategy. Even as confidence surged, buried fears lingered in the periphery, whispering that Jonah's influence might undermine their hard work. What if he extended his tactics beyond the boardroom, further unsettling her team? The moment of truth loomed. Would she be ready to face Jonah, and would Claire's support truly shield her from the fallout? With the plan taking shape, Sarah's resolve solidified. But as they stepped out of the cafe and into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was yet to come. The confrontation she had been training for was almost upon her. As she walked toward her car, a message from Greg popped up. Big decisions tomorrow. Are you ready? As the screen flickered, doubts clawed at her mind again. Did she truly possess the courage to become the leader she envisioned? Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. Little did she know, the unraveling layers of Jonah's strategies would soon test her in ways she never anticipated. How would she respond when push came to shove? As dawn broke the next day, Sarah's heart raced in tandem with the rising sun. She had barely slept, replaying every detail of the plan she and Claire had laid out. The caffeine buzzed in her system as she arrived at the office earlier than usual. The atmosphere buzzed with the chatter of colleagues, but the weight in her chest was palpable. The day ahead promised challenges that felt monumental, almost insurmountable. Inside the conference room, the tables were arranged in a U-shape, a stark reminder of the drama poised to unfold. Jonah sat at the top, a self-possessed expression on his face that sent a jolt of apprehension through Sarah. The other team members filed in as she shuffled papers, arranging her notes instinctively. She caught glimpses of nervous faces, their anxiety mirrored in her own. "Remember the goal," Claire whispered, her proximity grounding Sarah. "We're not just defending, we're innovating." As the meeting began, Sarah forced her focus. Discussions burgeoned around strategic goals and timelines. Jonah's criticisms occasionally cut through, sharp and deliberate. With each pointed question he posed, Sarah felt her heart thump louder. She had rehearsed her responses countless times, but in the warmth of confrontation, the script faltered. Would her resolve be enough? As the team fell under Jonah's scrutiny, Sarah realized she had to redirect the narrative, but doubt crept in again. "We're not just aiming to prove ourselves," she interjected, her voice trembling slightly before steadying. "We're demonstrating our vision through research, feedback from potential customers, and innovative storytelling." Jonah lifted an eyebrow, intrigued but dismissive. Are you suggesting we rely on emotional responses instead of hard data? That's risky. The air thickened. Confidence balled into a tight fist in Sarah's stomach. I'm suggesting we blend both. We've gathered credible data, and juxtaposing it with personal experiences could enhance our message. It makes our strategy relatable, something the board can connect with. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Encouraged, she continued. We can share testimonials that reflect our audience's needs. This campaign isn't just about marketing, it's about a connection, a dialogue with our consumers. The tension in the room shifted slightly, but Jonah's demeanor remained challenging. Do you consider that enough? Can narratives substitute proven strategies? Emotional stories don't always convert. Sarah hesitated but took a deep breath, grounded in Claire's earlier brilliance. I believe they do. Stories create bonds. In marketing, it's not just about statistics, it's about relationships. When we evoke emotions, we foster loyalty that's transformative. Isn't that what we want? To inspire action? For a moment, silence enveloped the room. Then Jonah's sarcasm cut through. Inspiring action? Well, it sounds nice, but will it work in reality? In that instant, Sarah's resolve crystallized. The time for data-driven arguments was behind her. It was time for her to commit to her strategy wholeheartedly. Standing taller, she responded with newfound authority. In addition to our data, we've conducted market research that shows people relate more to brands that share authentic stories. We're not just guessing. We're guiding our direction based on what people want. Claire's supportive gaze rested on her, bolstering Sarah's courage. The rest of the team leaned forward, energized. As Jonah opened his mouth to retort again, Sarah quickly added, Ultimately, this campaign targets human experience. If we continue arguing over the facts alone, we risk losing what could set us apart. Genuine connection. The choice lies with us on whether we want to lead through innovation or remain stagnant in our approach. Mutters of acceptance surged from her team as the bold confrontation shifted the currents in the room. Jonah shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The tide of dialogue began to course away from his grip. But as the conversation evolved, Sarah felt lingering unease. Jonah could represent more than just a skeptic. He was a formidable opponent capable of undermining their progress. Despite their advancements, the upcoming board meeting would be critical. What had she unleashed in this game of corporate chess? As the meeting adjourned, a sense of adrenaline pulsed through Sarah. She felt empowered, but also wary. One victory did not a campaign make. Doubts echoed in her mind, uneasy whispers. Could she maintain the momentum? How could she rally her colleagues consistently when the threats loomed larger? On her way out, Greg caught her eye. Nice work, Sarah. But things are heating up, aren't they? You ready for what's next? As her heart raced in response, she nodded, masking the roiling uncertainty beneath her newfound bravery. She was only beginning to inhabit her role. Had she truly equipped herself for the battles ahead? The real test awaited, and she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. How would she seal the deal against Jonah's relentless pushback? The pressure mounted the next morning as Sarah sat hunched over her desk, the glow of her computer screen illuminating her face. A series of emails cluttered her inbox, each one a ticking clock, reminding her of the challenges that lay ahead. The impending board meeting loomed, set only a few days away, and she knew Jonah would come armed to dismantle her ideas. Determined not to falter, she focused on her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She pored over analytics, crafting infographics to back her emotional storytelling approach. The data was compelling, revealing not only metrics, but a narrative she could weave into her presentation. What she had once dismissed as secondary became her anchor for a stronger argument. Days melded into nights as Sarah plunged deeper into research, gleaning insights from case studies on brands that had succeeded by embracing authenticity. There was an evolution happening within her, transforming the way she viewed her role in the campaign. Instead of merely wanting to fit in and please her peers, she embraced an emerging need to advocate for a fresh perspective rooted in empathy. But amidst her quest for knowledge, self-doubt ebbed back in, a wave crashing over her resolve. Conversations with Claire were intense, revealing both clarity and confusion. They would brainstorm, trading ideas, yet doubts tugged at Sarah's mind. whispering concerns about Jonah's existing influence over the board. Would her arguments be enough? More importantly, could she stand firm in the eye of his scrutiny? One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows over the office, Sarah found herself slumped on the break room couch. The tension felt palpable, wavering between excitement for the opportunity ahead and dread at Jonah's potential rebuttals. Greg ambled into the room, leaning casually against the kitchen counter, observing her with an understanding gaze. "You've got fire, Sarah. Just don't let him snuff it out." His words struck a chord. She realized that the personal connection she sought to foster wasn't exclusive to consumers. She needed to cultivate it within her team as well. They were all in this together, weathering the same storm. Yet, how could she inspire confidence in others when doubts still circled like vultures in her mind? That evening, she took a moment to reflect as she stood in her apartment. The familiar heartbeats of worry pulsed in her chest, mingling with the silent resolve that told her she was on the precipice of something greater than herself. She pondered about leadership and authenticity, what it would mean to not only defend her strategy, but embody it wholly. It dawned on her that to lead meant to inspire trust, to evoke passion, to forge a narrative that gave her team a stake in the outcome. It needed to resonate deeply, beyond mere presentation slides and numbers. Each story, each testimonial could serve as a pillar supporting her vision, the very connection she championed in her campaign. She jotted down affirmations of her intent, her weakening hands transforming into a steady anchor as she reaffirmed her dedication. As the days grew painfully closer to the board meeting, Sarah poured herself into every conversation with her team. No longer was she solely worrying about just her vision. She began to guide and challenge her colleagues to deepen their understanding of the message they would share with the board. They eagerly engaged, their anxieties transforming into collaborative creativity. Yet, Jonah had sensed the change. With a piercing gaze and strategic smile, he questioned her in meetings, searching for cracks in her newfound confidence. Each inquiry stung. However, they only fueled her determination. Sarah stood her ground, ready to embrace the looming confrontation, knowing full well that the true essence of innovation lay not in avoidance but in confrontation. On the eve of the meeting, standing before her bathroom mirror, Sarah practiced her pitch in hushed, steady breaths. Each repeat fortified her resolve, pushing her insecurities back into the shadows. Suddenly her phone buzzed, startling her from her concentration. It was an email alert, an unexpected message from Jonah with an ominous subject line, Our upcoming discussion. Tension raced through her veins as she clicked open the message. What awaited her inside could either be a blessing or a harbinger of chaos. She felt the threads of uncertainty beginning to tighten around her resolve. Was he planning a surprise attack at the meeting? The real battle was swiftly approaching, the final act in this unfolding drama. And Sarah had to ask herself, could she face Jonah, both as an opponent and a mirror reflecting her own struggles? The glow of her phone screen illuminated Sarah's anxious expression as she read Jonah's message. It was succinct, yet charged with unspoken implications. I'd like to discuss our strategy before the meeting. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? The words twisted in her gut. It felt like an invitation to a trap rather than a collaborative effort. Determined not to appear shaken, she spent the rest of the evening drafting responses to his potential counter-arguments. The stakes felt higher than ever, each choice emerging from the depths of her instincts, battling against the demands of her cerebral strategies. Would appeasing Jonah's ego ensure her message would even be heard? The thought clashed with the urgency of her authentic vision. She could either cater to his ambition or stand firm in her beliefs. At the crack of dawn, fatigue had settled under her eyes like heavy shadows, yet the adrenaline of purpose coursed through her veins. In the rushed hours before their meeting, she inhaled deeply and replayed every talking point she had meticulously crafted. The cacophony of self-doubt whispered once more. What if he dismantled her ideas before they even touched the boardroom floor? It would tear at the culmination of her hard work, shattering her resolve like glass. As Sarah approached the small conference room where Jonah was already awaiting her, she ground her teeth, collecting herself. The aura of the moment turned predatory, a sense that every interaction from now on could redefine her career. She knocked, the sharp sound echoing her vulnerability, and he gestured her inside with barely disguised impatience. "Thank you for coming," Jonah said, his voice smooth and rehearsed. "I want us to be aligned before addressing the board. Isn't that right?" The condescension lurking in his tone set her teeth on edge. "Yes, aligning on strategy is critical," she countered, her heart pounding as she made direct eye contact, asserting herself. "However, it's equally important that our approach embodies the values we've committed to, rather than simply appeasing traditional expectations." Jonah's brow furrowed slightly, perhaps recognizing a shift. The anticipation between them felt sharp, the stakes palpable. He regarded her with an unsettling mix of curiosity and evaluation, almost as though he was considering how to dismantle her argument before it fully took shape. "So you're suggesting we take an emotional approach above data-driven insights?" His question dripped with skepticism. In that moment, Sarah realized she needed to steer the conversation strategically, confronting the very apprehensions spinning in her mind while turning the tables on his critique. "I believe that authentic storytelling leads to stronger consumer connections. Data is essential, but it's the emotional resonance that drives loyalty." Jonah shifted in his seat, his posture now rigid, evaluating the impact of her words. If they hadn't aligned before, they were now clearly on opposite sides of the battlefield. Yet Sarah felt awakened by the challenge. Grappling with the opposing viewpoint reflected her internal struggle. Could this confrontation not only shape the campaign but also clarify her own principles? The back and forth intensified. Jonah's criticism sharpened, and each response drew from the well of research she had immersed herself in, the case studies and testimonials serving as her ammunition. She felt buoyed by the knowledge she had gathered. It had transformed into her shield against his overpowering presence. Through the heated exchange, Sarah experienced more than just a defense of her ideas. She unearthed hidden reservoirs of potential within herself. Confidence surged as she dismantled his claims with viable alternatives, pushing aside the residue of self-doubt that had previously haunted her. Eventually, Jonah smiled, a glimmer of respect visible in his gaze. "You've clearly put a lot of thought into this, Sarah," he conceded, though the note of condescension still lingered. "The board may not be ready to hear it." As she exited the conference room, an unfamiliar feeling enveloped her, resilience. She had stood her ground, confronted her doubts face to face, and emerged with clarity. Yet the looming board meeting still awaited her, a battlefield for ideas and integrity. Tomorrow would be the true test, a culmination of every struggle she had faced thus far. Sarah paused by her office window, gazing out at the cityscape as the light of dawn washed over her. With a fire ignited within, she whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." And as the first rays of sunlight spilled into her workspace, she knew she would need every ounce of that fire when it came time to present her ideas to the board. The moment of truth eclipsed the horizon, casting shadows over her resolve, but illuminating the path forward. Would she be able to maintain her authenticity in the light of scrutiny? The boardroom was a hive of intensity, each member seated expectantly as Sarah made her entrance. The palpable energy in the air heightened her heartbeat, yet despite the anxiety clawing at her, an unfamiliar sense of confidence underpinned her steps. Facing the board wasn't merely a professional obligation, it was a culmination of her personal evolution, a testament to her hard-won resilience, and an opportunity for profound affirmation. As she approached the front, surrounded by her colleagues, Sarah recognized the range of emotions reflected in their eyes: curiosity, hope, skepticism. Jonah's voice cut through the brief silence, addressing the room with his usual authoritative flair. "Today we'll address the upcoming campaign strategy proposed by Sarah and Greg. I hope we can remain objective despite the emotional angles being presented." A flicker of tension passed through Sarah, but she held her ground. This was her moment to showcase the transformation she had undergone, a shift from doubt to embrace of her own power and vision. Greg offered an encouraging glance, fueling her resolve. She began her presentation not with statistics, but with a story, a narrative that intertwined their personal journeys, setting the stage for a genuine connection to their audience. "Imagine," she began, her voice steady. A world where brands understood not just the transaction, but the human experience behind every purchase. As she wove through the narrative, the room gradually leaned in, captivated by her authenticity. It became apparent that every word connected not just on a professional level, but on a deeply personal one. She wasn't merely advocating for a campaign. She was advocating for truth, for human connection, and for the future of their agency. Jonah's earlier smugness began to wane, replaced by a reluctant intrigue as they advanced to the data supporting her emotional approach. The meticulously crafted visuals she had prepared lit up the screen behind her, charts and testimonials punctuating the importance of emotional resonance in consumer engagement. The statistical evidence complemented her narrative, persuasively defending the authenticity they were striving for. "That's an interesting point," one board member interjected, a hint of surprise coloring his tone. "But where's the hard data to validate your emotional claims?" The tension flared momentarily, but Sarah was ready. "I've compiled case studies from industries that have embraced authenticity and witnessed significant market gains as a result. When emotions are engaged, loyalty increases exponentially, leading to repeat customers and a deeper brand allegiance. Here's how we can capture that within our campaign framework." With precise clarity, she outlined how their strategy could meld innovative storytelling with actionable insights. As she finished, the room sat in a rare moment of shared contemplation. The air buzzed with a newfound energy, one that hinted at the shifting gears within their traditional framework. A series of questions emerged from board members, probing deeper into her ideas. To her relief, they weren't merely challenges. They were discussions, a collaboration unfolding rather than a battle to win. Jonah, realizing the tide had shifted, attempted to steer the conversation back towards skepticism. "But can we rely solely on these emotional metrics? Wouldn't that leave us vulnerable?" Sarah's heart pounded, but she leaned into the challenge. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a strength that propels engagement. Consumers today crave authenticity and are quick to disengage from brands that fail to represent genuine narratives. Our approach presents a risk, yes, but it's a risk worth taking. We have the opportunity to lead in a direction that mirrors who we are as a team, flawed, real, and completely human. The moment felt electrifying. She could actually see nods of agreement rippling through the group, a collective acknowledgement that change was needed. Internalized metrics were being redefined in favor of values truly resonating with the audience. At the end of the meeting, a palpable shift in energy settled over the room. Despite the looming criticisms she had faced, Sarah felt united with her team. It wasn't just about numbers, it was about a vision shared, rooted in authenticity, empathy, and the willingness to embrace both success and vulnerability. As they left the boardroom, Jonah approached her, an unexpected gleam of respect in his eyes. "You did well, Sarah. Your passion and confidence were impressive." The acknowledgement hit differently, resonating deeply within her. "Thank you, Jonah." The confrontation had forged an unanticipated camaraderie. As the day wound to a close, Sarah returned home, her heart swelling with accomplishment. The weight of worry that had once tethered her felt dramatically lighter. She had not only survived the onslaught of opinion, but had genuinely thrived. Her voice had mattered, her vision had been recognized, and she had become a leader not just out of necessity, but out of a profound commitment to authenticity. Inherent in this journey of transformation was acceptance, not only of herself, but of the dynamic between her personal and professional life. Dreams, once sidelined, now interlaced seamlessly into her ambitions. Motherhood and career aspirations no longer existed in silos, but were beautifully blended into a cohesive whole. Sarah understood now that her true triumph lay not merely in the draft of a campaign, but in the courage to reveal herself and rally others toward a shared narrative. She had conquered her fears, embraced her ambitions, and stood firmly on her own ground, unwavering and confident. Turning off the lights in her living room, she recalled those early worries when she felt so lost amidst responsibilities. Now she felt empowered to continue striving not just for her goals, but for her children's futures. This victory wasn't just professional, it was profoundly personal, a significant moment of fulfillment that resonated through every fabric of her life. Her unveiling had been the catalyst for change, and as she slid into bed that night, a deep peace enveloped her. She had embraced authenticity, fostered connections, and emerged triumphant not just for herself, but as a beacon for others. This was the beginning of a journey she was proud to undertake. In this moment of closure, Sarah knew she had transcended past limitations, reclaiming her ambition and redefining her purpose. As she drifted into sleep, a single thought lingered. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a greater narrative yet to unfold. You've witnessed a powerful story of transformation. If you want more stories that inspire change and creativity, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover their own journeys. Comment below your thoughts or theories about Sarah's incredible evolution, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. Stand with those who champion authenticity and growth. Lead the wave of change.